Grant writing, thank you for that. Almost forgot to record. We have a great day of grant writing material that you guys are definitely able to put on immediately. So let's get on started. Next slide, please. Yep, I did that welcome. Let's go ahead and get next slide. I just want to make sure that we are all, there's a lot of us that are new on, so I want to make sure that you all know about the leadership training series that we have here at COFACC. The John E. Swing Chamber Leadership Training Series consists of educational training modules intended for those Chamber Association leadership teams who desire to operate as a high effective and high performing unit. These series covers topics most critical to organization operations and are meant to be taken throughout the course of the year and repeated whenever a new board convenes to ensure maximum cohesiveness among the leadership team members. And we have all of these on our COFACC website. So they're all recorded. So if you have someone that you want to make sure that they've watched this grant writing series today, you all have access to that. Next slide, please. This is how our program is going to flow today. We're going to welcome everyone, which we did. And I'm going to go over the Zoom house rules because we have to make sure we have those. First one is when you're coming in, make sure to mute yourselves. We're going to have Mr. Jerry Pallon's opening remarks, the purpose of our workshop, which I've already read, and we're going to introduce the presenter in a moment. And then we have the presentation slides. We'll have some questions for you to take home today and our workshop summary, and then we'll have an announcement and adjourn. Next slide, please. So these are our house rules. One, make sure your microphones are muted. You want to turn on your videos to facilitate better interaction. Be mindful of your background noise when you're not muted. And please avoid multitasking. You're going to learn so much today that you can immediately use again, right? Make sure your online name is appropriate and add your chamber affiliation if you haven't done so. Feel free to use the comments field as well if you want to go ahead and put your contact information and your name. So you can also network throughout the comments field. Next slide, please.
I think it's my turn.
Yes,
Good
sir.
Morning.
Open your remarks.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy. We're so happy in the team to have you with us for our first JES training for 2023. This is really a remarkable number of participants we have right now who registered yesterday. As of yesterday, was 655, and I don't know if there will still be catch up later on. But my apologies for all of you. If you were not able to individually acknowledge each and every participant, and also from the different states that you are coming from all over the United States. So for the benefit of everyone, I know this has been made public. Everyone used to be exclusive as a standard benefit we provide to our partner chambers and organizations. All our JES training are actually exclusive to the being part of COFACC. But now, since the topic is really involving, it is more a public service, as we are extending the invitation to any organization outside of COFACC. So feel free to participate actively, and we're so glad that we have a fabulous trainer who willingly is sharing us her expertise and her knowledge, and right after that, her talk would be a very good group dynamics or breakout sessions that will be handled by our Executive Director for FACC Foundation, Ms. Ellen Edmonds. So with that, sit tight and fully engage yourself, and be active especially in the Q&A, so that we will all learn from each other. Okay, thank you so much. Morning.
Thank you, Jerry. For those of you just coming in, welcome again. So let me go ahead and go over what the workshop purpose is about. Next slide, please. Our workshop purpose is to equip chamber leaders with the training needed to acquire skills in grant writing for top-level performance. Member engagement by having community impact, possessing courageous leadership, and experience business model alignment. Next slide, please. So our objective for the workshop today is to gain an understanding of the proposal writing process of planning, research, writing, and follow-up. Next slide. Now I'm going to introduce our guest speaker, Ms. Debbie Lee Ruiz, Deputy Director of National Diversity Coalition. Let me read about her. Next slide, please. We're going to have a treat with Ms. Debbie today. She's a 20-year veteran in the media industry, specializing in intellectual property licensing and contractual content management. Currently, the head of strategic partnerships and as producer and writer of a public affairs TV programs at Chime TV. Successfully raised over 10 million in funding over the last 8 years. So without further ado, let me introduce to you Ms. Debbie Lee Ruiz.
Hello, am I on screen? Can you hear me?
Yes, we'll put the spotlight on you, Ms. Debbie. There you go.
Oh,
And
good.
we can hear
Okay.
you. Next slide.
All right. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm here in Los Angeles. Typically, it'll be afternoon at this time in Florida, where I actually live. Hi, Jeff Bautista. I know you're in the Philippines, and congratulations to your newborn. So I'm so happy to be invited here to speak with COFACC and its members across the country. It's really interesting to know that you guys are all scattered around. It sounds like you're in, what, 11 states or something like that. And I thought that was pretty interesting that you're scattered in that many states, even more probably. And I just found this out recently when I did a COFACC application for an FCC government grant writing opportunity, where we're supposed to be able to get about over between $50,000 to $1 million. And that was for COFACC and National Diversity Coalition as a collaboration. So I will cut across this because I'm obviously, I'm in LA because we are launching Chime TV. It's an AAPI television network. So I apologize, I cannot spend a full hour with you or a full hour and a half, but so let me go through this introduction to proposal writing. I want you to know that you guys are very fortunate to have Jerry Pallon as the leader of your chamber across the country, because he has such great relationships with people like Faith Bautista, who is the CEO of National Diversity Coalition. And I say that because relationships have a lot to do with having more success in receiving the funding that you are writing about. So it's really important that you research your funders that you are going to apply for particular funding, because if you can develop a relationship with the people in that organization, whether it's private or government, you can have a better chance of getting to the top of a huge stack of grants. As you know, grants are open to almost anybody and everybody. So the beauty about being in the United States is that there's so much money to be given. There's a lot of money to be had if you fit the criteria of what you're applying for. So first, you want to have your business plan in place, that you really know what your programs are. You don't just apply for a grant because you need money. You want to make sure that you have a program to present, and that program that you're presenting and hopefully applying for money to be given to you, to your organization, it's because you're going to be helping other people with it, or you're going to be able to develop your own program and be able to ultimately roll out more help to other people. And that's typically the reason why there's grants, because it's other organizations that are fortunate enough to be able to give money away, they're willing to give this money to the community. And typically, these are private corporations or foundations that are like Facebook. They have a lot of grants that they provide, but you don't always just apply with Facebook. You need to make sure your program as an organization fits into the criteria of what you're applying for. So that is where I start with this part where you have to plan. What do you need the money for? So that comes in your business planning, making sure that you have bullet points written down. That's one number tip that I can give you. Write down in bullet points, what do you need the money for? Put that down in your cheat sheet and then set it aside. Research, who are you going to approach? Who has that program or that foundation that is willing to grant you the money that is going to be given to support your program without having to pay them back? That's what the beauty is of the grant. You don't have to pay it back. You're going to get the money. You're going to use it for either capacity building or AKA capacity development. So you need to research who these people are that you're going to approach. What are their needs? What are they looking to fund? And make sure you fit into that criteria. If you don't fit into that criteria, don't even write the grant. And that's one pitfall that I want to mention here. So I'm giving you tips and I'm giving you pitfalls. So one pitfall is don't just keep writing grants, because it's a lot of time, it's time consuming, and you may just be a needle in a haystack and you'll just get thrown aside. So try to really look into your funders and make sure you fit the criteria based on your program. And then remember I said write bullet points. You will start writing like an essay. It's almost like writing an essay. If you enjoyed writing an essay when you were in college, that's more or less what you're going to be doing here. Writing a proposal is like writing an essay. We'll go into a little bit more detail on that. And then the final part about grant writing is following up and finding out if you won the grant, if it will be awarded to you, or to even say thank you. If you were awarded, you always have to say thank you for receiving that grant money. Next slide. Okay. Research. Okay. In the research part, you want to make sure that many proposals focus on what's in it for them, and pay enough attention to what's in it for the funder. Many times, like I said, when you're writing grants and you think that you're just applying for a fund, you need to make sure it fits you and it fits them. Always, that's one other tip that I want to give you. The second tip, make sure that the funder that you're asking money from, that you know what's in it for them, because they'll just breeze through it. If there's really nothing in it for them, they will just breeze through it. For example, a bank. If you're going to apply, in my own world of nonprofits, I've been applying a lot in banks because Faith Bautista has great relationships with them through home ownership and small business. Those are the two largest reasons why a bank is willing to fund a grant, because they want to have clients that will eventually get mortgages with them and will get a small business loan with them. So that's the reason why banks are huge with a housing and small business, because they know they're going to get something back in return. So that's an example of why you want to make sure you are the right fit for that funder, okay? Number two, your a proposal element requires an executive summary and then the narrative, and that's the longest part of it. It's putting together all the aspects of it, which is in my next slide later on. And then you want to get your budget together, and that's going to be covered by Ellen and Jerry. And then the last part is making sure that you have all the data that support your grant, making sure that you have all the realistic numbers of who you're going to be able to reach, who you're going to be able to help, what type of compliance you need to provide eventually, because sometimes funders do want you to make sure you comply with certain issues or certain criteria that eventually after you get the money, you're not off the hook entirely. You still have to comply with certain things about that funding. And that comes like maybe a year later or 18 months later. And typically it's about a year to 18 months for funders to want to see, what did you do with the money? And you want to be able to establish a relationship with that funder so that next year or in 18 months, you can get more grant money from them. So that's going to be your pool of money year after year, or 18 months to 2 years. You're always getting some kind of grant from those type of funders. And there's nothing wrong in going to the same funder. A lot of people think that you have to jump around and get another grant from another funder and get another grant from a different funder the next year. No, you can definitely maintain that relationship and go to them again for that for another grant. Next slide. Thank you. So the executive summary, it says in the bottom, even though the executive summary comes first in your writing, in your grant writing, you should write it last. And there's a reason for that. So as you can see, the executive summary is a very important part, because when you write a proposal, and this is before you even go to a portal of the foundation, you're first writing a proposal that someone's going to receive either online or in some form of a letter, okay, or an email. They want to see a statement of needs, your goals and objectives, the background of your organization, and they want to see the costs related to that program. So all those need to be in a grant writer. Okay, let me just step back a little bit. A grant writer, it's not for everybody. So even if you can write certain things like a journal, or like if you're a writer for a magazine, it's not necessarily the same thing as a grant writer. So it's kind of specialized in a way. You really need to be able to pay attention to the details and make sure that you're putting your brain in the program and almost putting your heart and soul into what you're writing, because people will see it right in your executive summary. They will see how when you present your writing or your proposal, they will see whether there's really some soul into it, and it will come out in your summary, in your executive summary. So save it for last, but it will be in the beginning part of your proposal. Next slide. Okay, here's what they really want to know. We all know about SMART goals. Be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. And I won't go into detail about that. Everybody kind of knows that already. What specific are you addressing? So your audience and community, what audience and community are you serving? So make sure you don't go too wide. Your net is not too wide. Why, as a grant writer, you need to make sure you focus on who your realistic numbers, and make sure your net is not too wide. It's really embracing your core your core constituents, the ones that are going to benefit from what you're about to deploy. I'll go into detail a little bit more about that. What are you trying to achieve? So that's the SMART goals. How will you know if you are successful? So you specify program objectives in measurable items, your key indicators for success, and typically they will see that from your background in the executive summary. Outline data collection and analysis activities, and that's where that's part of your narrative, and you want to make sure you stay concise, but you also have to make sure you do not confuse your facts and the people that are reviewing your grants, they will notice whether you're all over the place. So you need to be very concise, you need to be very focused on your program, and you're addressing it so that you can make the reviewer say, okay, she really is going to do this, or this organization is really going to do this. They know their stuff. You're not all over the place. When they see some grants and proposals that give way too many options and opportunities, just pick 2 or 3 things that you're really going to deliver. Those 2 to 3 things will be enough for you. It will stand your proposal, and you will be able to really convey to your funder that you can do this, that you know what you're doing, and you know your market, and you know your reach, and you know your constituents, and you know their needs, and you know how to get the solutions to their needs. So that's really important. Why are you in the best organization to do this work? The mission and history, leadership, accomplishments. So you kind of have to scheme through all that. It's a requirement. People do need to know all that part. How will this project sustain itself in the long run? And that's another important thing to make sure you put in your proposal. Many times, grants require multiple funders. Programs require multiple funders. So you can get a grant from one bank for the same program that you're getting another grant from another bank, and another bank, and another bank. So you're able to sustain an actual program. Because sometimes you may not get the entire fund of money that you're asking for. You might ask for 100,000. They might give you 60,000. So what are you going to do with the 40,000? How are you going to get that? If a funder sees that you're able to get multiple grants from different sources, they're more likely to give you and to award you that grant that you're applying for, because they see several sources. You're not going to fall apart if the money that they give you is only half of it. You know what I mean? So there's real substance in what you're asking for, and you're able to deliver. Next slide, please. Okay, and that's the conclusion. That's where you want to do the follow-up, a thank you letter. These things I would just want to mention. Send a thank you letter, keep the funder informed, be responsive, and that's making sure that if they ask for more information and documentation, give it to them. Don't ignore it, and do it within 24 hours to 48 hours. Do not go beyond that, because they will notice if you're responsive, you want the money, they will give it to you, more than likely. If you're not responsive enough, you're taking your sweet time, they will not necessarily be, you can't win their hearts from that. If the answer is no, don't take it personal. Find out why, because you want to be able to use that information for the next grant that you're applying for, and make sure that you enhance your grant writing so that there's no lies. I'm not telling you to lie. I'm just telling you to make sure you address the areas that were a little bit weak in your narrative. And always ask about future funding because they come in seasons. Some will fund in the first quarter of the year. Some will fund in the second or the third quarter or the fourth. Some just have 2 seasons of giving. So I've seen it all. I've seen some that just give it in the beginning of the year, some that will give it in the latter part of the year because there's extra money left over. So they'll create another program where you can apply. And I'll skip the one in the bottom. There's boot camps for grant writing, and that's how I got started. I went through a 6-week boot camp. Believe it or not, there's a lot. So we're really scheming through this a lot. But here's some things that I wrote down on my notes. So relationship building that I mentioned, keep that up. Don't just, maintain it for the grant purpose because you want to go back to them again in the next year. Okay. So when you go back to them the next year, you want to make sure that the people that you were talking to last year, if they're still there, you still maintain that relationship. If they're not there anymore, you want to go make sure that you're always in touch with them so that when they change over, when there's a turnover, they introduce you to the next person giving you that review grants or that entertain the community, and then they give you notices when they have grants coming up that are RFPs. We call them RFPs. They're pretty much the same as giving a proposal for a contract, but it's for grants, for money. So the things that I did not really go into detail here, I just want to make sure the 2 things that you want to apply for are for capacity building, which I mentioned earlier. That's for you to be able to produce your product and to be able to perform, and then to be able to actually show it and share it with the public, whoever you're giving. Typically, a nonprofit is meant to get a grant so that you can help other people. It's not for you to keep the money or create your business out of it. No, it's operational. It's for you to have operational funds so that you can provide that help to the people, to your constituents. And I wanted to also mention a couple things here. These are just my don'ts. Always try to get people to work with you. You're not alone. If you are in an organization with at least 2 to 3 people, make it a group project to go through that grant, not just you as a grant writer, because the grant writer does not necessarily know everything about the program. So you need everybody in your organization to sort of give you components that you need to write a grant. And it's really important to have data that is something that you can deliver on. So they have to be realistic, but don't be shy. If you think that you can go more and stronger with once you have the funding, think about that. Think about the fact that you're going to get that money and you're going to be able to use that money to go bigger and better and wider. Okay? So don't be shy, and that's what they're looking for. They want people that are innovative. They want organizations that are going to deliver on their promise, which is what your proposal is about. You're promising to be able to do something with the money. The other thing, so make sure you work as a group in your organization. Make sure you're able to give input to the grant writer. Okay. So a funder needs to have interest in what your project is. So if they're absolutely not in the business, like I said, a bank, they will get mortgages and small business loans out of helping people that need housing and small business technical assistance. So those are reasons why a funder will award a grant. But don't just leave it there. Make sure you know that they are not the experts of your program, because grants are typically asked, people that ask for proposals or companies that are asked for proposals, they're actually trying to get more inventive ideas from everybody. And it's real. They're not just trying to give money away. They're also trying to see what does the community, what are the ideas in the community that they have not thought of, so that they can give you that money and you can bring it to and share the wealth and share the pie. So that, just make sure that you know that they're going to fund you because there's an interest level on their end, but it's not necessarily because they're the experts at it. Okay, so those are two different things. Being an expert at it, if you assume that they're an expert at it, you might write a grant that is not enough meat to be awarded. Most of the grants you use a portal. You have to establish a portal, login and password and all that. And when you go in there, you will have to provide your executive summary, and there's a lot of questions, and like an essay, you have to give everybody all the information that you need to give based on those portal questions. Remember, there are character limitations in the portal, so make sure your narratives are concise and you pay attention to the character. If you're using a portal, it will reject it if you go beyond 2,000 words, for example, or 3,000 words. But if you're doing it in a proposal and you're having to send it in a proposal matter, just pay attention to the fact that when you get too long-winded, the reviewer or the panel of reviewers will probably reject it because they'll just go to the next one. The ones that are addressing the causes right away, or they're honing in on the problem and they're honing in on the solution within the first part of their own your proposal. And also, don't confuse the problem in the beginning, because some companies try to address a problem, or an organization, a nonprofit, for example, might be there for a reason. And if they try to resolve the problem in too many ways, then the funder is going to say, wait a minute, there's just too much here. It's too confusing. So don't confuse your funder, don't confuse your reviewer, the reviewer that's going to review the application. Typically, it's a panel. It's not just one person, but it always goes through someone that will look through it. And if you don't grab them from the get-go, they will probably set it aside, and they'll go to the next. And that's where your relationship also comes in. In my case, Faith Bautista has great relationships with most of the bankers in the area, so try to get to know them if you're in the housing or small business nonprofit. Most of what I've given you, this is actually the conclusion of my presentation, and I'll just take some questions. You wanna?
Yes, there were some questions.
Okay.
On the chat, but it looks like Miss Annie is also answering some of them on here. But if you want to go ahead, for those of you who did put a question on the chat fields, go ahead and unmute yourselves and ask your question. Go ahead, Jasmine. I see your raised hand there.
I have a question of if we can just hire someone who's good at it instead of going through the process of making mistakes and learning. Hire someone who's good and then learn as they're doing for us.
Yes, so there are grant writers that are for hire.
Mm-hmm.
you typically want to have an in-house grant writer to save money because grant writers are quite expensive. If you hire them and you don't even have the funds, it's a catch-22. It's like, how do you pay the grant writer when you don't even have the funds yet? You know, so yes, you can definitely hire your grant writer. They're out there. Depends on what you're doing. Some government grants that you need to apply for, that's very specialized. I'm not in that area, and I think Ellen can speak to some, or Jerry can speak about government programs that you can apply for when I leave. So if you want a government grant writer, you definitely want to, you will most likely pay more because government grants are tougher to apply for. They typically are. It's just a very cumbersome process that you have to go through because it's public money that you're having to apply for.
Well, yes, I do have someone who already made an offer and is charging $500, so I can share it. They've been successful, and I just know in the learning process, you know, the time that it could cost us when they know what they're doing could make it worth it.
Yeah.
So I'll
Yeah,
share.
that's true.
Hi, I'm Maria Dumatal, and I'm not going to show my face, but I showed it earlier. I represent PhilAm, but it stands for Filipino American Influential Leaders and Mentors Association. My real job, though I'm on their board, my real job is I actually work for a cancer research organization. I'm sorry, we're 501c3, but we fund underfunded cancer research, and I handle their grants. Okay, on the side, I also do grants. By the way, you had mentioned earlier that it's similar to RFPs, like let's say if it's federal or state. So there's a few that I've actually just recently done. And in my past life, I used to also handle RFPs for the staffing recruiting industry. So I know how grueling it is, how time consuming. It's like nights without sleep. You've got to answer and you know, abide by every question or statement that's written in that RFP. And hopefully you don't make a mistake, you know, time and all that stuff that's on there. So I know for a fact that, and I've attended other grant writing event seminars through Association of Fundraising Professionals, for example. I'm in Orange County, by the way, in California. And I've come to find out that like when you're doing an RFP, when you're responding, you're doing a response to an RFP, you cannot develop a relationship with a person putting that RFP out. You will actually be disqualified. Okay. But on the nonprofit side and the charitable funding and all that, you know, looking at foundations that would fund other foundations, you're able to build relationships. Now you handle a lot of the banking stuff for Faith. So
Yes.
So that what I just made, it was a statement based on my experience, and it is expensive to hire a grant writing because it is a lot of work. You need some brain time to like, you know, to like set aside because you'll go crazy if you just keep thinking about whatever you're writing about. You do have to do, there's a methodology on it and all that stuff. You have to have passion for writing.
Yes.
Okay, so you do a lot more banks. Now, my question in regards to the Filipino, I do have clients. I do want to let you know, I do have a lot of clients. I only have one Filipino client, by the way. All of them are American throughout the United States. But as far as Filipino organizations are concerned, like I'm looking right now, I'm going to give you guys a hint. It's called grantmakers.io. Okay, you can search the profile of a foundation, and you can also search grants. Who's given to who? Then you look at who gave to who, you know what I mean, to like, let's say Filipino foundations. And those are your private foundations that have given to Filipino organizations or whatever for whatever mission it is. But I feel that there's a lot of limits on what they give Filipino foundations, you know, for whatever the reason. Mostly I think it's scholarships and education, maybe creative education or whatever, or the arts and that kind of stuff. But for other missions, their initiatives there's not very many, it looks like many foundations that give to Filipino, whatever it is. Keywords Filipino, right? So keywords are so important when you're looking for foundations to give to who. So I just find that there's kind of a limit to giving to Filipino initiatives in the United States. Do you find the same?
I'm not so sure that they looked at a Filipino organization as much as they look. You might have more experience on that note, but I definitely feel that AAPI causes nowadays are getting a lot more elevated. That's why we even have Chime TV now, because Asian dollars have Asian hate, and Asian dollars are now coming to the surface more than ever before. The myths are being broken. Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know about Filipino mainly, but if your organization is looking for funding, it's not because they're Filipino. It's because you want something to do with that money to provide others, right? Or to provide some kind of benefit.
Right. And the big one nowadays is diversity, inclusion, equity. Those are the big ones. They got lots of dollars and corporations for that. So that's just kind of like advice for everybody on the phone as well. So I just wanted to share that as well. So, but thank you so much.
There was a question.
Thank you.
Yeah, there was a question that came up earlier.
Yep, go ahead.
There was a question about the award. You can hire a grant writer for a certain amount, like $500, for example, was thrown out there. And then you give them a portion. They typically get a portion of the award, like another $500. It's an incentive for the grant writer to really do well because she can double her money. That's, if you're lucky, you can get a $500 grant writer. It's typically more like $1,500. That's the starting rate, $1,500, and it goes up from there, depending on how complex the grant is going to be.
We'll take two more questions. Thank you for that, Miss Debbie. Mary Tess has her hand up, and then we'll go Daphne next.
Okay, good afternoon. Quick question. Can the Chamber of Commerce like us, Philippine American Chamber of Commerce of Georgia, avail of the grants, and who are the grantors?
So yes, I mean, obviously you have to research that. That's part of your job as a grant writer. But since I'm here to kind of give you the tips in grant writing, so you need to research who your funders are. But yes, a chamber like yours, if it's a 501c3 or a sort of a nonprofit, 501c3s are typically the ones that get the most funding, because other types of nonprofits, they will only fund lower amounts of money. But 501c3s, you can get a bigger part of the pie. So chambers are typically funded by banks. In this case, since I do a lot of grant writing with banks, because you are a small business and they know that you will need a small business loan one day. So that's where the exchange comes in. I mean, because
C6
they're a funder.
C6 cannot
usually
get
out there. Yes, and
C6 can also avail of that.
Yes, and the SBA has a lot of different programs and grants that can be given. I think Ellen will let you know about applying for a SAM, and then you guys can talk about that more.
And then last question, Daphne.
Hello, this is Daphne from Colorado Springs. We are new, so we are Phil Chamber of Commerce for Southern Colorado. We are new. We are just trying to put things together. I was wondering if you have any samples that we can look at and get some ideas from, and more actual writings of a grant, because we do not have the money to pay anybody yet. So we're trying to do things on our own. And I heard someone say that we have limits for Filipino grants. We would like to break through that. We'd like to get the goal as high as we can and make that limit for Filipinos, break it and get through it and get whatever grants we can get. Yeah, so I would like to may I please request for samples if you have any that I can look at.
Yes, I can give you some samples. Again, you have to have your programs. Make sure that when you look at my samples, you will remember that you just need to kind of make sure you have your business plan because you're new. When I say business plan, you more or less are able to say that you have a program that is going to benefit others, or if you're doing it for your organization, it's typically because you're helping other businesses in your chamber. So yes, I can send that to you. I can send it to Romy and she'll share it with all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. In regards of time, because we still have another portion of this training, we're going to go and Miss Debbie, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and do our group photo before we move on. So if you could please have your cameras on, that'd be great. And we'll have Sheena instruct us on what we need to do.
Hi everyone, please open your cameras. In 3, 2, 1, please smile. Another one. 1, 2, 3, smile. All right, we're good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sheena. Thank you so much, Debbie. That's a lot of information. I know it's concise, but
it is.
But thank you for
one more thing I want to tell you.
Go ahead.
One more thing I want to tell everybody. One of the things that is very successful in grant writing is that you write a story that is going to reach out to the heart and soul of the reviewer. I've always written some kind of story of people that are struggling, and man, I get funded. And I get funded the full amount. So that's one tip. All right, take care.
Thank you so much, Debbie.
Thank you, Debbie.
Bye-bye.
All right, now we go into our group discussions, and Ellen is going to Ellen 3. I know we have different Ellens that are on board, but we will have more information. So we're going to go into our group discussions now. Sheena, go ahead and put up the slides, please. So this is
I don't think we have slides.
Yeah, this is going to be a group discussion question that we're going to give to you as a homework, but we're going to have Miss Ellen Edmonds come on, and she will have more training for us that's going to benefit.
Yeah, actually, to respond to one of the questions.
Yes.
Yeah, that was raised. I wanted to show a sample budget, operating budget that has been submitted for a grant. And I wanted to show a narrative as well, so that you would be able to appreciate exactly what it looks like. Okay, shall we start with a budget?
And you can go ahead and share.
While I am pulling this up, would anyone want to ask some more questions? I also appreciate that there are a lot of grant writers in the room. Yay, Maria and Debbie, I think, are also grant writers. So we have a mine of resources here.
Ellen, if I would just like, there's a question. This is Ellen Sampson of COFACC. Before we go in, I would like to answer that question. Why we Filipinos have very small participation or grants that are given by the grant world? Why? This is the reason why COFACC is now, the theme of COFACC is Go for the Gold, and our executive board members know this already because we discussed that in our strategic planning. COFACC is actually doing series. This is not just the first one for grant writing. The way we want to go for the gold is we want to be equipped with the processes and the skills to go for the gold, which is literally the gold that is the money for grants. As we were saying with COFACC before, you know, we have these plans, everything a wish list for what has to be done. But if we don't have the gas money to fund our energy, how can we go there? This is the reason why COFACC is sponsoring a lot of grant writing classes and maybe a boot camp, which we're still thinking. But this is in support so that we could be seen by the public or the American society as a force to reckon with. COFACC has a program, we call it the MIMA, Make It Happen, Make Us Matter. I'm so thankful that the one who mentioned a while ago that Filipinos don't get the grants. Why? Because we're not making a stand. They are seeing us for our culture, for our way of life, but not in business, not in community service. So MIMA, it will be the battle cry of COFACC, and we hope that we will not be considered anymore. If you go to Wikipedia, we are called the silent minority. We have an article which we will share with everybody. This is the reason why we are just seen as English speaking. We are seen as educated and Christians. That's it. But we are assimilating ourselves. Now we are dissolving into the Asian community. So we don't have that clout. That's the reason why we have MIMA and Go for the Gold and this grant classes. As you said, help us. The lady from Colorado said, you know what? That is the goal of COFACC. And this is the reason for this series of grant writing classes and programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. And you are so correct. This is going to be a series. Are you seeing what I am sharing? And it's actually a folder. Yes?
Now we are, yes.
Okay. I don't want to intimidate everyone, but this is how much documents are involved when you are actually submitting a grant. And I am sharing today a grant that we have submitted to PSAF when I was with Paco. And the only reason that we did not get it is we asked for too much for our size. Okay, so that's also one thing that we need to bear in mind. Do not ask for, if you're operating funds, for example, year on year is only 25,000 a year. You cannot expect to get so much more than that immediately, because the grantors would look at what have you been managing in the past, right? So go baby steps. And another way to actually get more than what you already managed in the past is to highlight the competency of who's going to manage the funds. And that includes having staff, usually an executive director or the board members, right? And one sure win would also be to partner with already existing and trusted nonprofit organizations. You can make them your fiscal sponsor, and you pay like 10% of whatever money that you get from the grantor, and you would actually be the ones to implement the program. Okay, so I just wanted to walk you through this PSAF grant that we have submitted, and I think we also have Mr. Dave Edmonds in the house. This is about, and he co-authored this grant with me. This is about putting solar panels on 100 homes within Portland, and it costs $6 billion for this 2-year program. And at this point, when we were submitting this to PSAF, or Portland Clean Energy Fund, Paco was managing $1 million or so a year for 2 years. And it wasn't enough for us to be able to get a $6 million grant. And Debbie was correct. If you did not get the grant, the grantors would usually sit down with you and you can ask them why. It's not questioning. It's about asking the right questions so that you can put together a better grant proposal. Dave, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but do you have any rejoinders to that? Okay, I'm going to open.
Well, the key takeaway, and you kind of already hit it, is that even though we had an excellent plan in place that was very easily sustainable, in fact, we could have exceeded that by 5 times over, we didn't have a track record through PACO of managing $6 million. And because of that, they passed over us. They looked at the numbers and went, oh, these guys have never done that kind of numbers before. And they really didn't even look into the depth of our proposal and how detailed it was. Ultimately, when we had a review after the fact, they admitted that, hey, you guys asked for too much money. If you'd have, maybe asked for $1 million or $500,000, it was a no-brainer. So that was the first lesson that we learned is even though you have the capacity and you really want to make a solution that's impactful, don't ask for more than is very clear to them that you can do. Just because you can and you've got the right people in place doesn't mean an outside person that has no knowledge of your skill set will believe that. So that was the biggest takeaway. The details of what they ask when there's a grant proposal out there, they outline very detailed what they want.
Yes.
They say, I need this, so many words for this, so many words for that. It's not hard to know what they want. The question is, do you know what you're going to give and how it's going to create a solution that fits their scenario, what they're trying to accomplish? And I think that was the biggest takeaway that we got in that first round, is making sure that you address the issue and don't try to take too big a piece.
Yeah, and after we sat down with them, they actually got to look at the details of the grant piece by piece, and they actually invited us to apply for the next round, because I'm going to show you how intensive it is. So this is section 1, and usually these are outlined in their RFPs or request for proposals. Okay, so we need to indicate what our mission is, what's our history, how long have you been in the nonprofit space, and who have you been helping? Okay, and then section 2. What project are you really trying to? I'm sorry, Jerry.
Can you show the screen doesn't show what you're talking about?
Yes, yeah.
Oh my God, I'm sorry. I thought that I was sharing it. Hang on, I'm going to stop sharing again.
Thank you.
Thank you for that share. How about now?
Yes.
Does it,
Thank you.
yeah, okay. Okay. So I'm going to start again. Just very briefly, the mission of your organization. And I'd like to connect this with what Debbie mentioned earlier. Your mission will have to be aligned with your grantor's mission, right? If it's not aligned, don't even bother, because they will not look at you or us to be given funding because our missions are not aligned. That is number 1. Okay, and then we need to be able to state our history. How long have we been helping in the community? Who have we been partnering with? This is somewhat like a corporate profile. If you are in sales and you have been submitting proposals, you would have to somehow pick up your way into it. Who are you and why should we give you money, right? Your partnerships, your founding members, and this is actually when you can highlight the composition of your board, okay? So it's very important as well that you're careful who you invite to be members of the board. And usually the best way to do this for volunteer board members or composition would be a cross-functional group. You have somebody from finance, somebody from marketing, somebody from business operations, because they look at that intently. And somebody mentioned earlier, diversity. It's also very important that your board is very diverse. The project description is very important here. In this example, you need to be able to state exactly what you intend to do in just so many words. Debbie mentioned it. If they do not get attracted to the first few lines or phrases, they will not bother reading the whole thing. So you will have to be able to encapsulate in few words, but then you need to be able to give the details once you get them interested. Okay, so I'm just sharing this with you, not to intimidate, but to show you how intensive real grant writing is. Okay, And this is just one portion. This is the narrative. And usually these types of grants would have you indicating what are the potential risks of the program that you are proposing, and how do you intend to win over them. So here you will see there are a few potential challenges or barriers to success, and you line them out and tell them exactly how you're gonna win them. Who's gonna help you, and exactly what it will cover. They are also asking for milestones and schedules, right? So timelines. Here is what I'm talking about: project team experience and qualifications. They would usually want to know who's running the show, right? Before we give you this kind of money. Okay, I can share this with you later on. I just wanted to really highlight the major components of a grant. And then of course, there's the financials. Later, I will show you an Excel file.
Ellen, there's a question. It says, how do you see, from Louis, how do they see diversity for a PhilAm organization? You mentioned.
Yeah, for a PhilAm organization, in our case, what we have shown is we're not just Filipinos. In the board itself, there are other nations or nationalities, and of course, diversity would also include gender. Believe it or not, there's even a column there about disability. So that type of diversity and inclusion, because they want to make sure that there's somebody's looking out for everybody. Did that answer your question, Luis? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. You want to be able to highlight inclusive contracting. So for this particular RFP, they wanted to find out what percentage of the workers that will be used to put up solar panels are actually within the diverse pool. It has to be more than 50%. So you get more points. So you see what happens here is when your proposals are being evaluated, there are certain points that are assigned per item. So there's a weight. Okay. Now I'm going to move to sharing with you the Excel file of the budget. And please feel free to read some more questions, Romy, while I'm pulling it up.
Yes, Marissa also mentioned diversity. Doesn't diversity can also mean that we are serving a diverse population? Yes, I believe so. Yep. And Jeff Bautista said yes.
Correct, Jeff. So what's happening is they're looking for, and when I say they, if the grantor is really saying that we are focused on DEI or diversity, equity, and inclusion, they're looking for by DEI, with DEI, for DEI. Does that make sense? So you get multiple points if your proposal is going to be managed by the diverse community, for the diverse community, with the diverse community. And when I say with, you also get extra points when you're collaborating with other organizations who are also in that space. Okay, now I'm ready to share. Correct, Jeff, along with other underserved populations. Okay. Sharing my screen on PSAF budget. Is this the one? Okay. I'm trying to share a budget for PSAF. These Excel files are usually given by the grantor. Why? Because they would like to be able to look at the same space every time when they're looking for answers, right? So the templates come from them, but it's all up to the grant writers to indicate the explanation for certain rows. So they would have a provision for the personnel, for travel, equipment, supplies, and materials, contracted work, and others. And for others, it's usually, for example, provision for audits, right? If you are actually handling more than $1 million, you would want to put a provision for an audit, because they will not give you the money if you do not have yourselves audited at certain points in time.
We have a
And
raise
there's,
from.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Dolly.
I can't unmute.
We can hear you.
We can hear you, Dolly.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not on video, not camera ready. But
Okay.
I was just going to mention also, in support of everything I've heard, that in my experience, not just with PACO, but with other organizations that are non-Filipino as well, really, the research is up to us, up to who is asking, you know, your organization. And I stated it here, it depends by state, it depends by city, as a matter of fact, because sometimes within your city and within the businesses within the state or your local community, they have funds that they give away. And the most important thing is networking. You really have to do your research on the company that's giving you money, or that has money available, because know their values and try to fit into that. Also, network with the people who have already received grants from them, because as Ellen just said, there's a partnership that really truly helps. And then if you fail, as we learned, as Dave also said, if your ask was so big the first time, they don't disqualify you from applying again. And always remember that, you know, you may have asked for 10,000, but if they're willing to give you 2, take it anyway, because that at least puts you in the door, or lets you in the door, and puts you in the roster of trustworthy people. It's like credit worthiness also to the bank. Same principle really applies. So just the most important thing is the research is a burden on your shoulder. You really have to be the one to find out and make bola if you have to, as long as you can justify it.
Right. Okay. We're sharing based on experience. Okay. And this may not be official. Please do not take it as an official
Presentation.
No, like we learned, for example, out of this grant, and please, let's just keep it within ourselves here. When we were submitting our PSEF grant, they told us, you do not need to limit your proposal, just put whatever it is that you need. And in fact, they had a minimum amount that you should put there as the cost for your workers. Okay, so, and they have set it at a very high amount. But really, at the end of the day, as we have shared earlier, we learned the hard way. You cannot ask for something that's too high versus what you have been managing in the past. Okay, so just to go back here on the personnel, see, they really want you to highlight each position and what the position would do and what's the percentage rate of the estimated hours here that you expect them to work on the project. And you can have a sharing of costs, right? Debbie also mentioned earlier, the same program, you can ask for multiple grantors to contribute, because not all of the money that you might need can be coming from or can be given by just one grantor. So that's the reason why you have a different estimated number of hours that you would have each position title contribute towards the program that you are submitting a grant for. It was also mentioned earlier that you should leverage, right? So where else are you getting the grants from or the money to fund this program that you're trying to put together? And it's always good to put all of the other sources that you're looking at. That way they know whether or not, if we give you the full amount, if we don't give you the full amount, would you still be able to do this? Because if not, we'd rather not give you anything at all. Right. So I'm gonna stop sharing now, and I'd like to open. Dolly, are you still raising your hand? No.
I don't think
Okay.
so, but we do have some questions on
Go ahead.
from Iris. How long is the process before the grant was given? Only when it was approved, or was it the waiting time frame when the grant has been approved? Iris, if you can unmute yourself, did I read that correctly?
Yes, can you please clarify that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, is that the one that you were saying earlier, the one that you showed the presentation, was it granted? And if so, how long did the grantor before you received the money? Like,
I would be able to, as I've mentioned earlier, this particular grant proposal was not granted to PACO because it was too big an ask. But when we sat down with PSAF, they wanted us, they looked at it and they said, you had a very well-prepared and comprehensive proposal. So we want to invite you to apply again. Okay, so that's why I am presenting it to you today, because we got the nod for it. For the only reason why we didn't get it, it was too huge an ask for the size. Your second question is how was it dispensed?
yes, like
this-
the waiting time when
disbursed?
it's, let's say it's, you just ask for like thousands or something, not millions. Do they grant it right away? And if so, how long does it take before you, before
Very
you come?
good question. Normally, what happens is if you have a program, they would give you like a certain percentage, say 20% advance, to be able to pay for the staff. And then you have like every month, you have to reimburse or replenish your funds. Correct. So really, what they don't want to happen, and I know this for sure, is for the organization to run out of money to implement the grant. So they would really give you the first round of funds to be able to support, say, a month or 2 months of operations.
Oh, okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
so don't worry. The grantors would usually make sure that they hold hands with the organizations who are helping them implement the programs that are aligned to their mission.
Okay, as long as it justified the amount, they'll grant
Correct.
it. Thank you for the answer.
And there is
You're
another
very welcome.
question from Miss Gigi. What's an appropriate % of the budget should be applied to staff?
Gigi, an appropriate, it really depends on the grantor again, but usually it's about 25%. Sometimes it's even up to 75%. It really depends upon the program that you're running, right? If it's a technical assistance program, for example, that really entails a lot of staff time on your part, it could even be up to 85%. This I can tell you, usually the higher staff cost is not questioned, for as long as it's a direct servicing of the program, not an overhead. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, well, as you know, we're expecting our first check. So just making sure that I have everything properly done. Guess, don't want to be audited.
Congratulations again.
Thanks.
And there is another question from Tracy. Why did you not put the amount of cash received from the 2 sources you cited in the supporting grant section of the Excel?
Oh, because we were not yet sure at the time how much that would be.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but they said that, and again, there are pre meetings before you are actually asked to submit your proposals. You can sit down with the grantors, and that was cleared with them, and they told us it's okay, just indicate where else the funds are coming from. If you are not sure of the amount, at least we know that there are some leverages that's expected.
Okay, thank you. We have 2 raised hands. We have one for, we'll start with Joseph and then Neil.
Hi, everyone. Mine is just pretty much like an observation, and as a recipient of our first grant, which we're very proud of with FACCOC, what we did here is we took baby steps because it was the first grant. We weren't looking at the size of the money. We took baby steps here to get our foot in the door. We actually learned from this, Geraldine and I and the board, and putting all of this together. And a lot that Debbie has explained, and a lot that Ellen just explained right now, is kind of similar to what we went through. But the point I wanted to drive at is taking that baby steps, okay, regardless of the amount, just to get your foot in the door and get familiar on how to start the process. A huge takeaway from me was what Debbie mentioned in the last part when she said, oh, by the way, telling a story is very important here. She's absolutely right. What we did, we continued to tell that story and preach that we want to become the vehicle for small business owners who have been in crisis the past couple of years. And this is what we kept on telling the grantors over and over, and we continue to do that. So I just wanted to share that as a grant winner, as chamber, we're a small chamber, but it's the process that we followed regardless of the amount. When we did not get the amount we requested, we didn't even want to revisit. We didn't want to sit down and talk about it. We just accepted it and humbly said, we are on our way. So you've got it. That story is very important. And learning the basic, which is right here, is actually very important as well. So that's all my thoughts. Thank you so much.
Thank
you, Joseph.
Go ahead, Neil.
Ellen, thank you so much for the training and everyone who spoke. My question is more specific in regards to the Excel sheet where you had positions listed. Am I correct where you actually named these positions, number one? And then number two, did you go further into your proposal and describe the duties of each position? Or did you not have to do that?
Yes, Neil, you are correct. We had to define exactly what these positions and roles would do, because it's important for them to know that there's no overlap and that these are essential positions to hire to be able to implement the program.
Thank you.
What was your first question? Did I answer that as well?
Oh, I think it was just you named the positions, right? But
yes,
there was no description I saw by them. So I guess they allotted space for you to go ahead and do that. So like, for example, if I'm the grantor, right, I would need to know the difference between a program director versus a program manager versus a program coordinator. They all sound very similar. They could have overlap. So
correct.
That's why I just kind of posed it to you.
Yes, you're right. They are looking there in the narrative. There's a place where you can actually indicate the roles that these positions play.
Thank you. We have another question from Daphne. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Well, it's me again. I understand it would be our responsibility to research for grantors. Now, taking for example, we have already identified some grantors. What would be an ideal way to contact them? What would be an appropriate way to first make contact with them?
Daphne, usually they're making use of their websites, right, to announce the grants that are available. And they would usually have email addresses that are posted. So I would advise you to actually reach out and not just rely on the informational webinars that they usually facilitate prior to the submission dates. So they would give you all the channels to be able to understand the requirements of the grant before they actually expect you to submit. So make use of all those channels.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions that I've missed on the chat? You can unmute yourselves.
Hi, my name is Lenny Di Castro, and I'm from here in Colorado Springs. I would like to find out if this is going to be recorded so that we can be able to go watch it again for future reference.
Yes, they are recorded and can be found on our COFACC website. Yeah, and
Okay, thank you.
easily
Hi,
shared as
Lenny.
well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. So yes, I am here in Colorado Springs and I have a business in here. But during COVID, I was able to go apply for grant, and I was able to go get a little bit under about 100,000 to make my business afloat. So this is going to be a good resources for us so that we're going to be able to go do whatever we can so that we can move forward. And just like what I said, Filipinos are really we are really good, so we need to we need to shine as one of the Asian people in Asia, because other Asian communities, they were able to go do it, so why can't we? So go for the
Correct.
Filipinos.
Amen. Because if you really
Yes.
look at the statistics, we are actually on the higher paid pool of all the Asians who are here, right, Iwan? So that means we are contributing
Yes.
a lot of tax
The
payments.
link of the Wikipedia, we strongly encourage everyone. It's in the chat board. Read it, and you will see that we have to make something. We really have to rise up. So
Yes.
the link is there. Thank you.
And do not be afraid. Do not be afraid and do not give up. We got
Correct.
this.
Okay, I also want to clarify what we are talking about today is how our organizations can apply for grants so that we can actually serve our communities, members, and others, and hire contractors. If you are a small business applying for a grant, it's so much easier. Because the grantors do this, use the nonprofits and the community-based organizations to distribute the money. The way that we now open the grants to the small business owners would be between us and them, and it's so much easier. It's just a matter of applying through a Google form or a JOT form. So as a small business owner, you may want to actually really go out there and find out what are the available grants to you, so that then you would have a sense and idea as well on how to implement your own grant when you get the money from the big grantors.
Thank you so much, Ellen. Okay, we don't have any more questions. We're gonna go.
Romeline, can I just make just for them to know, they, of course, we will have other trainings, but also maybe you would like to mention, Ellen, about some requirements, like the SAM and the DONS, in passing. That would be another topic, but maybe you could mention that too.
Yes, thank you for reminding me in your moment. We were talking about this before we started. For the CBOs, community-based organizations who would like to directly engage with city, state, and other local governments, we are required to actually register our organizations, get a DUNS number, DUNS. Please do not ask me what it stands for. I forgot. All I know is it's needed for applying to sam.gov. And this is how they actually monitor and audit our activities. So this is the reason why we need to indicate that in our application forms. And I can tell you, I think it was Dolly who mentioned earlier, city, state, and county, local governments, they really make it easier for the CBOs, community-based organizations like us, to apply for the grants, but they need this number. So I want you to start looking into those DUNS and sam.gov. It's not really easy to go through all of these applications and registrations. In fact, we are considering to actually devote one JES training session. We go through it together and you work on it with us here in this space so that you would be able to ask us questions. Would that be helpful to everyone?
Yes.
Yes,
Hey.
may I add something?
Sure.
Okay, so in applying for the SAM.gov and DONS, please make sure that you have your EIN number with you so that everything is going to be smoothly, because just like what you said, it's a pain to go
Yes.
do this process, but make sure everything is ready before you go to their website.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not easy, but we need to start somewhere. It can be done.
Baby steps, like what Joseph had mentioned. And DUNS means, by Ms. Lois, thank you, Data Universal Numbering System. That's what DUNS.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for a plethora of information. Again, as what Ms. Ellen Sampson says, we're going to have more of these trainings. With that said, we're going to go ahead and have some announcements. So our next one is going to be on December 25th. So make sure to go ahead and put that on your calendar and save the date. It's going to be about communicating chamber value to maximize member engagement. So that's going to be a great one. Okay, I'm just going to read a little snippet of what that's going to be like. And our trainer for that day, she's really great. Sherry Pash, some of you have heard from her before. Many chambers are seeing long-term members drop. In this interactive session, we will discuss what engagement means to different member segments, how to define and measure chamber value and engagement, and how to increase overall engagement. And the key to engagement is value. We're going to have open discussions and strategies and tips for educating potential members on the value of their chamber investment. So that's going to be a great one. Make sure to save the date, this February 25th. And of course, Sheena, if you could please have our slides up with our power up.
Robbie?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just to give a heads up, we probably will have to evaluate the need for a continuation of this webinar or this training in its sense that we didn't really cover so much, just made an introduction. And I think Sherry Pass will be flexible enough to move one more month before her next training session. So we might change the topic and go for further, or maybe a sponsorship, something related to fundraising. How do we attract sponsors? How do we win the hearts of the sponsors? Probably will be the next topic, because it's somehow related to the go for the goal thing, right?
Yep, great idea.
So let's just stand by on that, and we'll evaluate after this session. Okay.
Yep, let's do that.
Yeah, let's put
February
the
25th is the next one. So like what Jerry mentioned, we're going to play around with the topic because it sounds like there's a lot of people that want to know about how to, with the grant writing. So yes.
There's so much information that we cannot just put everything in 1.5 hours.
February
info overload.
Yeah. Thank you. But that is one of the trainings that we're going to have in the future. So keep that in mind. And yes, Lois, we're probably going to make it some sort of a series. Yes, February 25th is going to be the next training. All right. Now we'll go ahead with our power up slide. And for those of you who have not seen, but I'm sure many of you have, our convention is coming up. Power Up 2023. We already have the link for the room block, as it's going to be May 31st to June 4th. It's going to be Houston Marriott Westchase. So I've already booked my room. I've already booked my flight. So hopefully I'll be able to hug everyone in person. And our next slide will show you a rundown of what these dates are going to look like. Jerry, if you want to go ahead and talk about that.
Sure. Thank you, Romy. So being energized from the recent strategic planning, we'll all have a chance again to meet in person on May 31 in Houston, Texas. This is a big event. This is the first annual convention of all the chamber leaders and community leaders who are part of COFACC. And we are actually launching also, or relaunching our slogan, the MIMAM. Why are we gathered all together in that session? Even if, aside from the fact that it is our 5-year anniversary milestone since 2018, but what is more important is we want to rally the entire Filipino-American community towards this awareness that even Ellen mentioned in her earlier talk, and also her comments and on the chat, how important is the Phil-Am community to the overall landscape of the U.S. economy. We are a force to reckon with. It's just a matter of being assertive about it. And that convention will really hype up everyone to deliver among the different chambers. We want the maximum participation. So this convention is not limited to just the board of directors of each chamber. You can invite even members who are concerned citizens, the Philams, who want to experience the convention of being part of the bigger community. And we have scheduled it in such a way that we're just going there not just to listen to speeches. We have educational workshops that dives in very, very productively in the use of our time, dives into the different aspects of chamber operations, all geared up to equip us and to create that capacity in each and every individual attending that session to really utilize and use all those learnings to uplift the standards of the film and the film community, so that we are now ready to face our grantors, our sponsors, when we market our chamber, that, hey guys, we deserve the support that we need. And that is the time to rally and unify the entire Filipino-American business community along that line. So, and we're ending up that convention, not just purely all business talk. We'll also have a one-day session, an educational tour and fun. You can bring your family with you in that convention. They don't need to pay the entire convention fee. They can just join you during that one-day tour of NASA. It will cost them only $25 to enjoy and see what's really inside the NASA facility, the control center of NASA in Houston, Texas. So we also have a one night of leadership and awards night. We will be recognizing outstanding leaders in each and every chamber who has done valuable contributions to their Phil-Am community. So we now are organizing an awards committee who will handle that selection. And and everything is a lot of networking, a lot of community building, camaraderie, among us. And we're getting bigger, much bigger every single year. Now we started and we ended up the year 34 chambers. We started 4 in 2018, and we ended up 2022 with 34 organizations. Now, start of the year, we're now 35. We just added our newest partner organization, the Phil-Am, the Filipino Influential Leaders and Mentors, headed by Mr. Neil Estrada. So, I welcome everyone. If you have, concerned citizens or who loves the Phil-Am community and who would like to contribute, please invite them. We will publish the registration fee shortly, probably Monday. But just to give you a heads up, it's $425 per person if you have a full access of the convention. But again, I said, you can bring your family. They don't need to pay $425. Only for the full delegate, full access. We have trade exhibits lined up for you. For those who wanted to exhibit, we also have sponsorship tables that you can choose from. So it's a full convention. Let's take advantage of these guys. and we all want to see you there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sharon. And we're gonna, we actually have a teaser video that Sheena's gonna, it's a quick one, just to kind of to see what it's all about. Sheena, do you have that available? While we're waiting, can we get a clap for everyone? This was so great. That was a lot of information, but I know my brain is spinning because that's some really great information. And also, if you guys are watching the chat, we have some great information in the chat as well. So we have several that putting some great input from Miss Annie, from Miss Lois. So some great stuff on there. You should read.
Yeah, I have a question for Ellen Edmonds. Ellen, would you be able to share the sample templates of a typical, questionnaire the government grant? This is more complicated than asking a private bank or a financial sponsorship, but really for applying for the grants, maybe it can help them to have a feel of what kind of questionnaire that they will be encountering once they decide to apply for a grant. Would that be possible? We can probably email that, right?
I can email it, and I can also share it right now while Sheena is pulling up the video. And share screen. And
Sheena has the video.
Yes, she has the video. You can.
Oh, okay. So shall I stop sharing? Sheena would like to.
Yeah,
We'll just send the questionnaire and then maybe talk about it next time through the series. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Ignition sequence start. Engines on. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All engines running. Launch commit. Liftoff. We have liftoff.
Thank you so much, Sheena. I hope that powered everyone up, that you will register, and we will share all that information so you can share it to your BODs. And we want to thank our sponsors. Sheena, if you could please put that slide up. And thank you so much. I know we're 8 minutes over, but thank you for sticking with us. Some great information, and we hope to see everyone on the 25th. And we will let you all know if it's going to be a continuation or not, but we've always been great with showing you what's next. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and have a great Saturday. And for those of you who are enjoying tomorrow's Lunar New Year, happy Lunar New Year. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you. Make it a great weekend. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.